Hello and welcome to the Free Outside Show. Today ends 3 weeks of travel. I've been in Arizona, ran in the Grand Canyon, did a training camp on the Cocadona course. I went to California. I ran the hills of Los Angeles and went to a wedding there. And then I covered Gorge Waterfall's 100K. A quick note to let you know that the video I made with Derek Lytle covering Gorge 100K is up on YouTube, and 8 course records went down. So spoiler alert after I spoiled something, but it's a good video. Go check it out on YouTube on the Juniper Lab YouTube channel. Thanks, guys. Ran in the gorge, saw probably 200 waterfalls, and then I ran up by Mount St. Helens, where I encountered the aftermath of a dog stabbing with a switchblade. If that sounds crazy, it is. Check out my recent episode where I get a little bit more into that. So on today's episode of the show, you know how we talked about the Arizona Monster, the 300 miler in Arizona, where there was all kinds of stuff on Reddit, all kinds of stuff on Instagram, all kinds of accusations and everything everywhere. Well, I didn't do it. Did you guys do it? Probably not. But we wanted to get on someone who actually did it. And in fact, we just went with the winner, Pete Mortimer. So we're having him on today. We talk all about his strategy, what he did, how he slept more during this race than he usually does, how it worked out well, how it was kind of funny of how fast people were going, because it was one of those funny things to track, because you'd see one runner get a pretty good lead and then, they would kind of stop for a while, obviously sleeping, and then people would catch up. So you never really knew where people were. It's almost like if you take it down to a 400-meter race where there's like the stagger on the start, you never can quite tell until really near the end who's actually going to win. That was actually a really good analogy. You guys should really give me some credit for that one. So we're going to talk to Pete Mortimer about that. He's raced all over the world. He's traveled a ton. He actually went back to work just 24 hours after finishing Arizona Monster. And the crazy thing, he's doing 115 miler here in May, and then he's doing Tahoe 200 miler, Bigfoot 200 miler, Moab 200 miler, and the Barkley Fall Classic, a 50K. So he is racing a ton. Another cool thing that I didn't know that much about in this interview, we get into man against horse and how you guys can race horses. All right, let's get into that interview. But first, I want to just highlight that in all of this tumultuous everything happening in the world, no matter what your viewpoints or anything are, there's a lot of people who give up a lot to be part of our recreation, our hobbies. So most particularly, there's like Forest Service rangers, there's Forest Service personnel, trail crews, there's volunteers. And another kind of unsung hero is also ski patrollers. So all of these things that we do are inherently dangerous, and they're a lot safer because there's trails, there's mountains, there's people patrolling and making them safe. And so a member of the ultrarunning world, Claire Murphy, was a ski patroller and killed by an avalanche. So at Mammoth Mountain. So she ran a number of trail races and things like that. So just wanted to throw out there that thank the people that don't make very much money because they do what they love and they help you do what you love. So just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's important. All right. Speaking of important, let's get to this episode with Pete Mortimer. Today on the Free Outside podcast, we have the champion of the Arizona Monster. And I just learned a crazier story right after Pete Mortimer here finished. The next day he was back at work. So barely taking any time off. And it looks like you have the Triple Crown and 200s planned as well. So thanks for jumping on.
Yeah. These are expensive races, and so I can't take a day off work.
Totally. So just broad overview, how was the Arizona Monster? Would you recommend people do it? There were tons of stories surrounding this thing.
Yeah. I'd recommend it. I think it's a great way of seeing like a large section of the AZT, Arizona Trail. And, I'd only ever run anything from like basically I-60 north, going up to Flagstaff and Grand Canyon, that sort of thing. So for me, it was just a prime way of just, logistically being able to run this huge like segment. And Yeah, what a great way to do it. I mean, like with a bunch of people and like first year and like no idea what's gonna happen. And I didn't go into any of the drama like surrounding the race when it started. I was just there to run, and both you and I know, like, first year event, shit happens.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to hit on is Cocadona, you, kind of experienced that as well,
Yeah.
just right
Lest we
off the bat.
forget, like, Cocadona had many, many issues the first year, and,
Totally.
but, it's something you learn from and you kinda hopefully expand, and you're like, "Okay, next year we're gonna do this," and, like, to make things different. Um, First year with these sorts of conditions, it's hard, and, so I thought, the volunteers, like, the whole staff, everything was great. I didn't have any single issue, other than losing a water bottle here and there, that's my own fault, so
Yeah, totally, and, I mean, you're doing your next race is an inaugural race too, so before we dive too deep, I just wanted to say, are you searching out the first year of these new difficult races because you thrive in that unknown environment?
I guess I'm just a sucker, so, I'm kinda one of those people, like, they ask me, "Hey, will you do this?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah, whatever," like, I don't care, like, throw it at me and, let's just see what happens.
Totally, and so the Monster, that's your longest race that you've done, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'd done the summer spine in England, which is 268 miles, and I ended up running about an extra 10 miles during that race because it's all, like, self-navigated and whatnot, but, so, yeah, so for me, like, running this, I'm like, well, it's marked, and there's way more aid stations. The spine, there's, like, 5 aid stations, so, this was like yeah, it's logistically a lot easier for me, and, yeah, I just, an extra 50K, I was like, "Yeah, I could do that."
Totally. So with something like this and the Monster in particular and an inaugural year race, how are you dividing that up, figuring it out? Because it had this big thing with pacers had to do long chunks too. What are you figuring out ahead of time and kind of figuring out in the moment?
Um, so I wasn't great at planning for this race. I think it was, like, 2 weeks before, I was like, "Oh, shit, I better actually do some planning." And, I had some friends, they were like, "Yeah," talked about pacing and, it's kinda local for us, so I was like, "Well, if it can work out, it can work out," but, I was prepared to just do as much of it by myself, obviously, at night, it's nice to have someone to kinda tag along because that's when shit gets real, but, for the most
Totally.
part, like, I had 3 pacers during the race, and, it was they were fine. They were, um 2 of them, so Joe and Sierra, yeah, on the Aravaipa team, they paced me for a section, kind of opposite sections too, which is, Joe paced me on mostly canal path and then a little bit of trail at night, which is more like Sierra's forte, which I thought was hilarious. But they had both done like an ultra that morning, so I was like, however you guys want to do it, it's fine. But, yeah, Joe will pace me at night, and you got to see kinda, like, when I can turn on the jets and stuff because that Canal Pass section was slow for me. It's just 40 miles of asphalt,
Yeah.
and in the heat of the day, and I was just kinda shuffling along, and I'm like, "This is not my strong suit," Like,
Yeah.
"This sucks." So, but, the people that came out, to cheer you on and stuff, people, like, following along on Instagram, just literally just biking along and saying like hello and people want to run next to you and that was really cool. So that kind of was some nice motivation, especially after coming off of Mount Lemon and being in the desert for a few days where you just kind of don't see anybody and then you're like, what? Where did society get?
Yeah.
Society.
Too.
Tucson.
Where does your mind go during something that, this is 3.5 days of pretty much doing the same thing over and over again?
Um, For me, it was a little bit of a game, I'm not gonna lie, on the first day because, 300 miles, what could go wrong? A lot, and, everyone was running like it was a 200 miler, and I'm like, "Guys, we got, like, another 100 miles, like, we're going pretty quick." And, I myself went out a little quick, but, like, in a comfortable, like, pace that I knew I could handle, and, I was like, let's just see who bites. And so there was a couple guys early on, kind of start to see the front runners. And my whole goal was just to make it to crew that first, before sleeping. So the first 75 miles. And I came in, I don't know what it was, like an hour and a half before. And like immediately I just slept. And
Okay.
because I'm like, okay, 75 miles in, like even if they catch up and we go out together, who cares? Like we have so long to go. And then that just kind of became my strategy, like, because these guys would just kind of come in and go or take a little trail nap. And I was getting like real sleep at the aid. I'd let them leave. Like I'd leave like maybe 15, 20 minutes after them. I'd end up passing them over the aid, before the aid station. I get to the aid station, I just sleep again. And I
Okay.
just kept doing it and doing it. And by the end of the race, like I think I slept 8.5 hours. So, which is
Yeah.
insane.
That's a ton of sleep.
That's a whole night of sleep, right? And but because of it, I was able to move so consistently. Every time I leave the aid station, I just kind of walk for the first mile, let the food digest, just like I'm not gonna do anything but walk right now. And then I get into a shuffle, and next thing you know, I'm go, go, go. And both Joe and Sierra commented that um, they pace people on 100 milers that are slower than me. So, and like, they couldn't believe how fast I was moving. And I was like, for me, it was, I mean, I've done a lot of these big races, but it's good to see that, like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing at this point.
Totally. Was it all effort level based, or did you have splits or goals or like mileage pace you're trying to maintain?
No, I mean, so what's weird is, you look at stuff on paper and in my mind, I'm like, okay, I want to do the first 100 miles in about 22 hours, which
Mhm.
again, still pretty fast.
Quick
And
for a 300.
right, right. And I did it and pretty comfortably. And then my next goal had been like get to Mount Lemon by midnight. And I think I got there at like 11:45, and so it was like, being that close just kind of shows like I knew like my body, what it was capable of. And um, I mean, you can look at the terrain maps and stuff all day long, but until you go out and experience it, and playing the sleep strategy, I think really helped me kind of relax a lot. And because
Mhm.
I knew I wasn't thinking in terms of miles, I was like, you know, tomorrow, the next day,
Totally.
just
That's like FKT style math. Exactly. Like a 300 is basically just an FKT of sleep management and just
yeah.
hitting splits, basically.
Well, I've always wanted to do like a through hike or something like that to kind of see what I could do, but this is kind of the closest thing that I've gotten. And but it was really interesting to kind of see. And even on the canal path, I knew like I'm going to be slowing down. I'll hit that in the heat of the
Mhm.
day. And I'm walking. I stopped at 2 gas stations along the canal path, and I, like, grabbed, like, a piece of pizza and a Coke, and I'm just walking down, like, and then I picked up my pacer, and then we grabbed another Coke and, like, a giant bag of Funyuns, and we're sharing Funyuns, and I'm, like, eating them, like, "I promise we're gonna go faster." And we're just doing this kind of run, walk, shuffle, and then but I kept saying, "When night falls, like, trust me, like, we're gonna hit those trails, and I'm gonna pick up the jets." And then
Mhm.
it's like my brain. I threw on some Metallica. We were sharing like some music, and I was like, "Let's fucking go!"
Yeah, it's like Pete Mortimer and like a middle school kid are just like crossed over with Funyuns and
Oh
Coca-Cola at
yeah,
gas stations.
totally. It looks ridiculous. Like
Yeah. Why don't marathoners take us seriously? Come
I
on.
know, right?
Yeah. So what was training like for a 300? Was it just similar to other long things you've done, or with so much heat and elevation gain early, did you change things? Because you're a coach too for the audience.
Yeah, so I have a kind of the same method I've used for years, which for my 200s, which is generally like peak week, I'm doing somewhere like 3 back-to-back 50Ks. Um, this time I did like 2 peak weeks, and I did like 4 back-to-back 50Ks, and then, in which not all in one sitting. Sometimes with work, it's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner I'm running. But to me, it doesn't matter because it's just time on feet. You go out sore, which is like you're leaving the aid stations. And then the second week I did like I think it was like 4 20 milers or something like that. And basically 100 plus mile weeks. And I kind of looked at some of the other people's trainings, and they were doing a lot more than I was.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I know I've done this, and there's there is overtraining, and I think some of it comes with like stress too, like
Mhm.
stress buying before a big event like this. You're just like, you have everything you need, and next thing you know, you're on Amazon like 2 nights before, like, I gotta get this. What if this
Yeah.
happens? And I had zero stress in this race, like leading up to it. Like, I was cool as a cucumber. And I don't know. I kept thinking about it, and I was like, part of me was like, who cares? I'm gonna go out, have fun. I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna run my heart out and just kind of see what happens. So
Yeah, Pete was so cool and chill. I met him in Whole Foods like, I don't know, a week before, 5 days before
that's
maybe.
right. Yeah.
And you had no indications as to running a race. You're just like, "Yeah, just picking this stuff up for Monster." And it was like, "Oh, are you like crewing someone?" And you're like, "Yeah, no, I'm running the
Yeah.
thing." And it was like, "Wow, you are very cool.
Yeah.
Relaxed."
I don't know. I've stressed out enough over races over the years, and like, like tour, like I did last year. Of
Mhm.
course, like God, it was crazy. It is still it's like one of the hardest things I've ever done. But you get enough trauma, in your life, and you're just like, I can deal with this.
Yeah.
Trail trauma.
Yeah, and I'm seeing it a lot with Cocadona even more every single year with the training aspect of I think it's like a result of Strava putting everything in week-long bunches that people just want this perfect ascending graph where
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
I mean, I'm right in the mindset of you of a few big days give me all the confidence I need and then fill it in
yeah.
with the right volume and numbers. I don't need a perfect graph. I just need the confidence and the fitness, and that's not just a weird Strava ascension.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And then plus you like, you hit the 300, and then you bottom out, you flatline, so
Yeah, your Strava's messed up
I
all
know, it's
year.
like yeah, so yeah. But for as far as like running, like training goes, like I didn't really I laid off Mount Humphreys for a bit, I really worked on just more runnable miles, and it literally was just trying to do from like anywhere from like an 8:30 to 9:30 pace on everything, like
Mhm.
flat, up, downhill, everything. So on the downhills, I was holding back. The uphills, I was trying to give myself a little push. But then on the flats, when I hit like topped out, I was just like focusing on that turnover, like working those muscles and stuff. And um, yeah, I mean, I knew like going in, I was like, my pace what it's gonna be a little bit slower, and then there's gonna be hikeable miles and stuff. But like it really was like I was able to just crank out running miles, even in like the last 10 miles of the race. Like I was doing like probably like 11-minute miles, like, o
Wow.
on some rocky terrain coming down, like, and it's just like, that's pretty quick.
That
You know?
is that late in a race, that is
Yeah.
tough.
I
It's
mean, my heel was taped because I had strained my, Achilles a little bit, with some dehydration because there's like a 22-mile stretch that I lost a water bottle, and so I'm, like, just rationing water, and then it's just up and down, but,
yeah.
you know
I love the training plan that you've just created, like, run everything at the same pace, but you have to go uphills, downhills, and flats, so you're hitting
Absolutely.
every
Yeah,
zone
yeah,
by
yeah.
never changing your pace.
Yeah, what's crazy is, like, I'm still giving myself a little push on those uphills, right? But on
Yep.
the downhill, it's forced me to be patient because
Yeah.
I know I can bomb down them, but it's just like, no, like, this is the way you need to race, and I did that. Like, the first day, I was just, like, super consistent across the board, just mimicking everything I did in training because it is very runnable.
Yeah. Did you have any, hallucinations out there?
Um, I saw a black jaguar, but it was a cow.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wanted it to be real.
No, yeah. I didn't hallucinate. I got close that last night. I think I started kind of singing to myself, and cuz just the aid station was never coming, and if you look at the map there's like 1,000 little switchbacks, and but
Mhm.
you don't actually go down. You're just going around canyons. And so like and I was at night, so I was like just looking for a light, like, is that the aid station? Is that the aid station? And it just goes on forever. And yeah, I was starting to lose my shit a little bit. Like, I recorded like one or two videos, which I looked at later. I'm like, oh boy, I was deep in the well. I like just talking to myself. And um, yeah, and then I was confident that I was being chased by mountain lions at that point because you're up there by yourself. No one was around me for miles except for like one or two Arizona trail hikers who were camped out sleeping in their tent. And I
Yep.
felt bad because I was like, I come up over this ridge and I'm singing out loud to myself. I'm singing like, "You Never Walk Alone" for the Liverpool theme, and going right by their tent, and they're probably thinking, "What the fuck is this guy doing?" Just like out in the middle of nowhere on top of these mountains, just like they're just came for some peace and quiet, and then there's this guy. So
Yeah, they're on their through
so
hikes. They're escaping to nature, and then this guy is just singing at the top of his lungs coming through.
oh
This
man.
the same thing was happening when I did the John Muir Trail the last night, going by people camped to go up and climb Whitney and just like the pinnacle of their life. And I'm just like talking to myself to try to stay awake. I'm slapping myself, and it's like, what is this guy doing? It is
Oh
quite a
man.
sport.
When I got into that last aid station, I was just staring at them. I'm like, "Is this real? Like, this is it? Like, please be it."
You
And
look pretty beat up in your after photo too.
there was a lot going on there. Man, it's like, so that last section I came by pretty quick, and to the point where like I could see the finish line coming into the big complex area, and I was like, I didn't know which way I was supposed to go, and I saw one of the crew members working in the back of his truck, and I was like, "Hey, do you know which way I'm supposed to go?" He's like, "Oh, who are you?" And then he looks, he's like, "Oh, fuck!" It's like Pete's here, And then he's like, they're like rallying everybody, and I'm like running around, and then as soon as I cross, they're like, they want the photo, and then like
Mhm.
they put you in the booth, but they were like, futzing around with the stuff, and I was just sitting there, just like, and Siska, my partner, she got it on video, and it must have been, it felt like an eternity for me, and I'm just like, part of me is like happy, and then I like teared up, and then I'm like, am I? Is this real? Is this like
Yeah.
happening right now? Like my brain is just trying to like comprehend, and got this giant light shining in your face, and so she comes over and just gives me a big hug. 'Cause she's like, could just tell I'm just like I'm going out of my mind, right now, and then so yeah, there was like a myriad of emotions going in that photo, and I think those photos are great. I mean, if you saw like my starter photo where I'm like goofily like holding my bib and smiling, and
Yeah.
it's got like a shit eating grin on my face, and then you see that, it's just like, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that was literally in the last like 30 miles was just
Okay.
my face deteriorated.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Like you'd lost just a ton of weight out there somewhere.
Dude,
Yeah.
it was rough, but
Yeah. I mean, everyone who came through it is kind of like the first year of Cocadona. It seems like this like badge of honor to have gotten through it. Just looked
yeah.
so insane for anyone of any speed out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, Canada's races are hard. They're like graduate level, I call
Uh-huh.
them, because, anytime you're going out, for 18 to 20 miles a pop, a lot could go wrong. And then, I've done Bigfoot, I've done Tahoe, and in the past, and like this like desert race though, it's like I carried a filter for the first 100 miles before I just tossed it, because I'm like, why? There's no water.
Yeah.
Like, where am I gonna get water? So it's just like just extra weight in the back, and like you carry bottles and they pop out, and then you're just like, fuck, and then you got to deal with it, and you can get holes in your bladder. That's happened to me in the past, and so it's like it's really, you got to be on your A game. I tell people all the time, Cocadona is probably the easiest and the most
Mhm.
accessible, even though it's 50 miles longer than its regular 200. But you get to past Crown King, and then you're probably going to be okay. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I think the stats are like if you finish the first 100 miles, you're probably gonna finish the whole thing. Like, it's very high percent because
yeah,
it's so front loaded and it self-selects. If you can make it that far, you're good to go.
totally. Plus, then you've got the supportive crew and everything
Mhm.
from there. So, um,
Yeah, and so what drove you? Because in the past, you've never really signed up or done things a second time. So you're going back for a second time to a number of 200s and
yeah,
doing those this year.
yeah.
What drove that?
I always said if I do Moab, I'd want to do the whole Triple Crown, and then try and win the thing. So, um, and then they added on the Arizona Monster, and I was like, all right, might as well just do all of them this year. So,
And then throw in 115 1 month before Tahoe.
well, yeah, that was a free entry, so I was like, yeah, maybe I'll throw that in there. I also have I'm also doing Speed Goat 50K in July and the Barkley Fall Classic in September. So I have them raced pretty much every month until November.
Yeah, will you just like keep it constant, the training throughout the year?
Yeah, so this is the first year in many years that I haven't had a coach. I kind of wanted to step away from that. I mean, I coach people, but at this
Mhm.
point, like I wanted it kind of be a journey this year. Like self-reflection on like how I train, like being self-trained, obviously using my own like insight and what I've learned from others. But um I didn't want to like the stress of racing this year. Like if I do well, great, and I always want to do well. But I think just not being like there's gonna be like less focused training at this point and more is just about recovery and just rebuilding. Um, and so like a lot of that strength is going to be interesting to me to see like how well can I perform like race after race, like because I've never
Mhm.
done more than 1 200 in a year. And lots of people have, and so that to me was a challenge. But um, yeah,
So you don't want the stress of racing, and so you're racing 1,100 miles this year.
that's
So,
correct.
yeah, your brain works in mysterious
I
ways.
know. Well, it's the truth is I'm getting older and I mean I still like throwing down on 50Ks and shit, but it's dude, it's getting fast out there, man.
Yeah, I know. It's like you show up to something and it's like you just hold on for dear life to be in the top 10 if it's short.
Dude, yeah, totally.
We got to stick to the longer stuff so we can be the old and wise people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I did Bigfoot in 2017 and Tahoe in 2016. So it's a while back. And most of the 200s, except for Cocadona, I've been out of the country, and navigating and, just totally different, so to do some more runnable, races out here and just kind of really race, I think that'll be interesting because I won't
Yeah.
be sleeping near as much on those 200 milers.
Yeah, I figure. I mean, like 86 hours is insane to be out in one race in the desert too.
Totally. What
Yeah.
I was proud of on that race was my first, I think, 200 miler was around 83 hours or something at Tahoe. So the fact that I slept twice as long on this one's
Whoa.
showed like to me that was like a pretty big accomplishment to see kind of how far I've come. So
Yeah. And then now does this one get put in the back burner on the back burner and never do this one again? You've done it now?
I think so.
Yeah.
There's so many. There's more in Europe that I want to go do, and you know, eventually, like 300 will be the new like 200, and
Yeah, pretty soon it's gonna be like 500 is the new 100.
that's right. Yeah, just to, like never stop running ever.
Yeah, like year round run streaks are the new
Yeah,
200s.
totally.
Yeah, so I wanna shift gears because, I think where we met is a pretty funny story, so if you want, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. I was hoping the story would come up.
Yeah, all right. So we met, it was 2021, and we were in Frozen Head State Park,
Oh
and
yeah.
we're running up a hill at about 2 AM or 2:30 AM, and then I hear this voice behind me that's like, "Do you have your bib number?" And
No,
it's like,
remember
or,
the first several words were fuck,
"Oh,
fuck,
yes."
fuck.
Yes.
That was me.
Yeah, and internally, I'm screaming as well because 'cause we're both in, like, our dream race of the Barkley Marathons here.
Yeah.
And so I hear this cussing, and then Pete asked me if I know my bib number or if I have a list of bib numbers, to which I check like 3 times. I have my bib number, but then you said you don't have your bib number. So take it from here.
I was I was literally remember that giant packet, it's
Oh,
raining.
yeah.
We're like almost 2 miles up this hill and I'm like we're going uphill in this conger line and I'm going through this packet in the rain, like trying to find my bid number because I'm like freaking out because what happened was the conch had blown at the Barclay.
At like
I didn't hear it.
1:30 AM. Yeah,
Yeah,
super early.
most people didn't even hear it, and, I was all ready to go, but, like, I had someone bang on my door, and I was like, "Oh, this is it," and so I go and I get my watch and, get back to the car, which had been, like, 8 or 9 minutes. And then I look over and they're lighting the cigarette. And I was like, wait, what? And I was just I missed all that time. That hour was just gone. And so in my haste, I grabbed my stuff and my bib had slipped on the inside of the center console. And so then I'm like trying to figure out what bib number I'm at so I know what page to take out. And then yeah, and so like enter Jeff, who had no idea who he was. He had no idea who I was.
It's
And I'm
2
just
a.m.
2
pouring
a.m.
rain.
I'm right behind him, and we're I'm just letting all these F bombs. I'm freaking out. And then finally I'm just like, I gotta fucking go back. And I just turn around and I run all the way back to camp and get my bib and then go all the way back up. Oh yeah, that's way. On the way down, I forgot I ducked under a tree and my pole got wedged and I gave a little tug and it snapped. I was like, this is the worst day ever. And yeah, I got my bib and that, but I managed to catch like the last runner and then back at the top and then proceeded to get way the fuck lost out of the park. And yeah, it was heartbreaking, man. That was the worst. And I still like to this day still think about it. It just eats away at me, until like I get my next time out there, It's just like I'm known for the guy who's got the FKT to Gobi Church, which means nothing.
Yeah. So you literally ended up at a church?
At a church, yeah, outside the park. And like he was like, I was telling Lazarus and I'm like describing this thing and he looks at me, he was like, well, it's way too early to be hallucinating. And then he finds church, he's like, I cannot believe you covered that much distance in that amount of time. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I ended up at like the front of the park after I looped around. It was awful. So,
Oh my
but
God. I can't imagine the stress that you have when you decide to turn around. Like it
dude,
must have been such a sprint.
well, and then like all of a sudden you have all the runners just like, who the fuck's this jackass?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he's the number one bid. It's him. So I just spent years and years of training there, and I was like, yeah, I cried like when they blew taps because it was just like, God, so much sacrifice, and just for what?
Uh-huh.
Just that one like stupid mistake, but never happened again.
It was the craziest thing because it's just like everyone's nervous. We haven't even gotten to the first book yet, so it's all like, all right, just hang on to the like two veterans who are even here, and
Absolutely.
then turmoil of not having a bib, and so then everyone's chats about that for a second, and it's like, I guess you could either pull the last page of the book or go back, and so
Yeah, I was like, Laz wouldn't play any games, and so I was like, I'm just gonna follow the rules, and like, this is what happens, um, and then we ended up like, even though we weren't talking like at that race, like we went for that Cocadona training round.
yep,
We met with
exactly.
Jamil, and then I was like, that's how we like. You're the crazy guy that was right behind me.
Yeah, so Jamil, it was before the inaugural year of Cocadona, and Jamil set up this run, and a number of people were going to join us throughout. But I think you went with Jamil the whole time, right? And I
Yeah,
did too. And
yeah,
early on, it was like the last 40 miles or something. But early on, we were talking, and we were both talking about Barkley, and it was like, oh yeah, we were all three there that year. And then it was like, Pete says that he's the guy who lost his bib, and it was like, oh my gosh, I was right in front of you. This is insane. And it was more like, what are you like as an actual human outside of the Barkley stress?
So what's hilarious is that is like, we've raced together a couple of times. Even do you remember at Magion
Mhm.
when you're ahead of me in those early miles? And then like I snapped another pole then. And then like,
Yeah.
do you remember like I tripped on my pole and I stumbled and the thing snapped and I hit myself in the balls and it like
Yep.
buckled me over. I almost impaled myself on my pole, like because the shards and stuff. And I remember he gave a quick glance around, but in my mind, I'm like, Jeff just thinks I'm most probably the biggest jackass runner. Like every time I'm around him, it's just like some weird, crazy shit happens.
Yeah, because it was the portion of the Mogollon course that was flat, it was smooth, it was
Yeah,
non-technical.
yeah. Well,
Like
it's like on a fire road.
like you shouldn't even need to have poles out or anything. Yeah, and you snap them, you're grabbing your crotch and you're like hobbling a little.
Yeah, and then I ran the race with one pole. It's just like, oh man.
Yeah, I don't know if it's me or you, but the
It's me.
combination
It's
is
told
just.
me. I
Is this a normal occurrence? If I go to all your races,
know.
will I see such things?
Probably guaranteed to see something of the sort.
Yeah, and so got through inaugural year Cocadona, and you're really involved in the community down there. And probably a more notable thing than you ever even running the race is Pete's Meats. How did that come about?
So I've been doing that for years. Before Cocadona, I was doing like Coyote Aid Station and like Javelina back when it was like
Okay.
one pop up. And I mean, I've got like photos of my kids with like, me, Sage Kennedy, and Hayden Hawks around the barbecue. Like, I'm like showing Sage, I was like, hey, check out this burger, and but yeah, over the years, like I've just, yeah, it was something I always just like to do is bring the grill out and then was like, pay for some food and then just, give it to the runners. And then, they now, the curries are like great and they like me up there and, they had me down for Javelina, at Jackass
Mhm.
Junction. And, but yeah, the Cocadona the first year when I finished, I think I came home and I slept for like an hour and a half and then I went to the store and just I had a bunch of friends volunteering at Eldon up there, and I was like, "Dude, let's cook out and stuff." And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then you've just kept doing it. Last year, I was hallucinating quite a lot, and you came up. A person comes out of the fog dressed as a panda at
Yeah.
midnight, and it's like, what is happening here?
I thought it'd be cool if I'm just gonna stand in the middle of these rocks, like on top of Mount Eldon, and just wait till a light kind of flashes over, and then be like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because I just got done hallucinating that the earth and all the rocks on Eldon were just pieces of bread,
Yeah.
and then I get to the top, and there's a panda that's actually real, and that's when there's trouble, is when real and
That's right.
hallucinations
He's
mix up
talking to
too
you.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it's kinda sad we won't be able to do it this year, like, I'll up on top of Eldon because the course changes and
Mhm.
stuff, but, I'm still gonna be doing the food, up at Wildcat Aid Station, which is conveniently, like, right behind my house, so it's I could just cook at home and sleep in my own bed, which is nice. But yeah, like I just I love doing that stuff with the community. Like, if I'm not running, I'm generally out at some race. I like the Aravaipa like team meetups and stuff. I've cooked for them as
Mhm.
well, and just I don't know. It's something I like doing. I think there's something with food and like community, and just kind of eat well, be
Yeah.
well
It's the
mentality.
original gathering, activity as well as eating,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and have you ever cooked something or given a runner something really good and they've immediately yacked it up?
No, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe. I mean, it's you know, I I like to think that most people like my food.
No, but I mean, just like at mile 2:35 in a
Yeah.
race, you never know what's going
You
on.
you know what's funny? It's like a lot of people would say that like, "Oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat this." And I'm like, I always just pack it for them. Like, Listen, like it's still got hours, right? You're gonna be walking
Yeah.
down this hill, like just take it and everything." And then every time they come up to me later, "Thanks so much for giving me that food. I ate it and it was like it brought me back to life." And um I think it's I think the meat thing might be surpassing like my running ability at this point because I've had, like when I was in Italy, like, there were people during tour that was like, "Oh, I had your food at Cocadona," I was like, "Wow,"
Wow.
like, New Zealand, like, there's another one, I was like, "I'm getting around," "Word's getting out."
Yeah. People know Pete's Meats. They're looking for that restaurant in Flagstaff and just realizing it's not even there.
Yeah, it's just my house.
Yeah. I remember one year I was running down Eldon with like a piece of brisket in each hand and just like gnawing a little bit on each one. They're
Yeah,
pretty good, and I don't even eat a
yeah,
lot of meat.
yeah. I mean, my inner fatty, I'm like that all the time, like, that was I think when I did Dragons back years ago, that was, like, one of my favorite memories when we ran through town on like day 2 or 3 and I stopped off at a pastry shop and I had like 2 sausage rolls and I was running down the street and like the wind was blowing all the flakes, like everywhere and I'm just like the happiest kid, like fat school kid, like, yeah.
Yeah. I think I would go with like Costco chicken bakes right here in your, vest you're
Totally.
running.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanna get into your philosophy that mostly seems like finish at least each race once. What is kind of the feeling of that? And does it just feel like it's get at that experience and then move on, whether if it's your best or room for improvement?
Yeah, like I'll repeat like some local stuff. Like Man Against Horse is one of my
Hmm.
favorites, and I try and drive people to that race. I think it's one of the oldest races in Arizona. It's kind of a grassroots race. Then like get to race horses, freaking
Yeah.
awesome. And so like my kind of mentality is like I don't want to be taking away from another runner's chance to do these races. So like it took me 7 years to get into Western. I did it. I had a decent day, and then I was like, "Okay, I'm done. I'll go on the next thing."
Uh,
Maybe when I'm 70, I'll get into hard rock, and then that'll be the next one. But it's just I think for a lot of times I just don't want to take away these. The race. This is the biggest growing sport there is, and
mhm,
I think you know there's plenty of them to do, and I like to use it as an excuse to travel as well. So
mhm.
the race is one day or sometimes a couple days, but just what a way to see the world.
Yeah. So when you're traveling, what's the best way to do it? Do you explore before the race or after you've done the race? Because it seems tricky either way.
Yeah, I try to do the race somewhere in the middle generally.
Okay.
I've done like when I did the spine race, I was there for like a day and a half before, and that was not good. I stepped to that start line like jet lagged and tired, and that's the only race I've ever hallucinated on. And
Didn't you say you were staying with family or something too, and it was a
mhm.
whole mess? Like
W
with
well,
just not a lot of sleep. Yeah.
no, yeah. Well, it's like we got in late and then, we go out to the pub and all same family. And then like my relatives and everyone's talking for like all hours of the night and stuff. And then I'm like, you know, I kind of wake up and then I'm nervous, waking up, going back, and then the race itself too was just like I gotta self navigate and I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Like I got to a point in that race where I hit the same sign 3 times and I thought I was having a mental breakdown. Like I ran in different directions each time and ended up like a clover, ended up at the same sign. And I was like, how is this happening? I'm like by myself in the middle of the night. Just
And that wasn't hallucinating? You were
no,
really hitting that
no, I
sign?
was. I was. I was just like the GPX was off and it kept pinging weird. And so I'm just like trying to figure out which way to go. And then like, yeah, it was just, when you're that freaking tired.
Yeah, that sounds rough. So let's go back to man against horse. Why don't you just explain the concept and we'll see if people can sign up? Because yeah, how do you race a horse?
So yeah, it's an equestrian race that they have runners at, right? And so they have a 12, 25, and a 50 mile. I think it's been going since like the 1980s, somewhere around there. It's a long time. But yeah, they send 12, 25, and 50 mile, and they send the runners and the racers off at the exact same time. And the riders get vet checks. Depending on the distance of the race, they have like so many vet checks, and then those are generally like a 15-minute hold. So even if you beat them across the line at the end of the race, like they subtract that from your time, right? So at the end, like even if I cross the finish line, like for the 50 mile, I think 50 mile is like an hour and a half of vet
Okay.
checks time. So it's quite a bit. So
So
you have
you
to
have to beat them by an hour and a half?
yeah. To
Wow.
officially, like, beat them, and only a few of us have done it over the years, but, yeah, it's so cool. You take off with your horses, you're back and forth, you've got your strengths, you got their strengths, and then a lot of these people like us have been doing it year after year and stuff, so it's kinda nice to see everybody, and, they do, like, a big family dinner at the end,
Okay. But
and
you're
then
not getting trampled by the horse if it's right next to you?
no, I mean, like, so, like, they're generally faster on the uphills than on the
Okay.
downhills, so, like, it's kinda one of those things you just kinda give way and let them pass you. Although, like, I think this last year, like, I had a rider behind me, and the entire time I was like, "I'm not letting him pass me." And then, like, I was, like, a couple miles in, I'm like, "Pete, this sounds stupid." You're like, "You literally won't let a horse pass you right now? Like, this is where you're at and you're running?" And I
Peak
was sta
male ego. Yeah, peak
I was
male ego here.
I was staying far enough ahead, like, I'd let him pass if he caught, but it
Yeah.
was just like, this is crazy talk, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're racing an animal.
Yeah, how fast do the horses do it?
So it varies. Like, I mean, for years they didn't even, um, like runners wouldn't even win the race. I think Nick Curry was like one of the first, and then I followed.
Mhm.
And I mean, you got to do like probably like a 7 hour ish 50 mile to beat the horses
Wow.
at this point. So yeah,
Do they have, like, ringer horses? Like, it's a fast horse here and a slow horse here, that kinda thing?
I'm sure they do. So they're only allowed to race them every 2 weeks. So the race
Mhm.
sometimes fluctuates on the calendar a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's just one of the coolest like old school races around. And then I always like the family dinner afterwards. Ron and Stacy, the RDs for their question side, and then you've got James Bonet, who
Oh, yeah.
handles it on the running side. So
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, there's so many unique races beyond just, like, fixed time and fixed length. Have you done any, backyards?
I've done a couple. Yeah, yeah. Um, two. One was during COVID. We did like a Voltramine or something, but and I ended up winning the in person. Although like there was I was only against two people in treadmills at that point, which was like it was weird. I didn't think that was fair. I was like, dude, you're
No.
not. I'm out here in the heat, dude. You're sitting there at AC
Yeah.
and then I did one up here in Flagstaff. I'm not opposed to them. Like they intrigue me. But I think both of them I done didn't have a lot to look at, and so it
Mhm.
was just kind of like, like I know Babbitt's has changed since when I did it, but like it was like one dead tree and like a 4 mile loop to stare at, and then the weather that year I did it was just like insane winds, rain, snow, everything, and I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, fuck this.
Well, it looks like there's a opening in your schedule sometime next year, so maybe
Yeah,
you can work one in.
yeah.
So, the last topic I wanted to get into is coaching. So, where did 8 More Miles come from? 8 More Miles Coaching is Pete's coaching.
Um, so it's kind of a couple things, I guess. So there's this mountain, South Mountain in Phoenix,
Mhm.
and every Thanksgiving I would do this kind of no pants giving hike all the way across. You can wear pants. It's just kind of a joke, but like I would take all these like runners and hikers all the way across South Mountain, and it's probably like 15-ish miles across. But a really cool, fun thing to do on
Mhm.
Thanksgiving weekend. And well, one year I always do the car drop offs, and one year like they were doing all this construction, and I had to park like a couple miles below where like we normally like finish, and I didn't tell anybody, and I was just like, we'll just deal with this later. And then just a couple extra miles at the end, and
Yeah, no
when
big
we get
deal.
to there's a hut like about halfway across, and it's literally about 8 miles from the finish of this thing. And they're like, "All right, how much further?" I was like, 8 more miles. So like, all right, cool. And then a couple more miles goes by, and they're like, "How much further do you think?" I was like, 8 more miles. And they're like, "Wait, what? Wait, what?" So people started to catch on, and yeah, it was. e- Everyone got there, nobody died, but like
Yeah.
that's kind of what I do. Like I've tricked people into doing hard and long things before, sometimes getting lost in the process. But um, it's kind of like I took it upon myself for like my mantra, like for my coaching, because I'm like, you know what, like it's like people you know that are Garmin whores, that are
Yeah.
chasing down that last like segment, like, oh, I need the extra 10th mile or whatever. It's like, who cares? Like
Yep.
races, sometimes you get a little under, or sometimes you get a lot more than you want. Well, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do? Like with 2 miles to go, just oh, I'm not doing it. Like I'll just I quit.
So what you're saying is finish and then do 8 more
That's
miles.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
So
I've always done the technique to kids, you just say 3 more, and then they never or like 4 more or 5 more, and they don't really know what the 5 or the 4 is, but you're just,
yeah,
like, giving them a number.
yeah. Well, and it's I like I said, I'm good at like tricking people into doing
Mhm.
things they're capable of, and then once you do it, you do it the next time.
Yeah.
But it's been worked on. It's worked on me too, because when I was at tour, there was literally every volunteer I'd asked. I was like, "How much further is the next one?" They're like, 8 kilometers, and I'm like, "Get the fuck every 8 kilometers every time 8 kilometers, 8 kilometers with like 4,000 feet of climbing, like 8 kilometers." Just, it drove me crazy, But it's just those are the things that make you stronger.
Yeah, just nightmares about the number 8. It's
Yeah.
just popping up
Oh yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
You know, it's fun to just hear about Monster from someone who actually did it
yeah.
versus the internet.
Yeah, like, it's like, with everything going on, it's people getting out of control about this stuff, like, it's like we've run out of freaking problems, you know? It's like, I don't pretend to understand the situation, and I don't wanna understand it. It's like people have beefs and stuff. There's certain ways that we can, like, resolve this, obviously, privately, but if, people are gonna use their platforms nowadays to do certain things, and but I also, like, I've never had a issue with Ken. She's always been very nice to me, and, like, I'm just kinda like, every experience is my experience, you know? There's
Mhm.
plenty of people I'm sure on that race had a shitty experience and plenty of people that had a really awesome experience, you know? It's like, I think some people are just, like, more adapted to just kinda take things in stride and just keep, like, plugging along, you know? And that's what
Yeah.
you have to do on these ultra races, like, they're not perfect. Cocadona was not perfect this year, first year. It was a fucking
No.
mess, but it's turned into, like, an amazing race, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping the Arizona Monster will be like, just you get a couple under your belt and, you start getting out all the tweaks and,
Yeah.
become something
Yeah.
great.
Just to sum it up, you would say everything at Monster was just standard inaugural year race stuff, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you for listening to the episode. Also, thank you to Janji.com for all your apparel needs. So I'm going to be wearing a Janji Sun hoodie, which I absolutely love, and a visor for Cocadona 250 because you got to keep that sun off you and you got to stay cool and let your head vent. That's the secret. I like to throw a bandana under my visor with some ice in it so that it's like cooling and melting down on top of me. So it's continual topical cooling. So Janji, check them out. Tell them we sent you so that we'll keep sponsoring the show. Also, Garage Grown Gear. I will be using multiple headlamps from Garage Grown Gear for Cocadona 250. They have all kinds of stuff. They even have backcountry bidets on there. So that's pretty crazy. This also might be my 100th episode, but I don't really pay attention to those things. So if it is, you can help support the show by going to patreon.com/freeoutside. And we take all that you will donate to the show because it's a lot. I bought a new webcam. I bought a better mic. I have all kinds of stuff. We're leveling up our game here, and we have so many good guests coming down the pike. I think that's a term. The last sponsor we have for this month is Csinstant.coffee. Go there. It's premium instant coffee, which it has it's like froth on top. So you can just tell it's way better than like your Nescafe and stuff. So really check it out. It's also great for a treat. And there's this thing called, I think it's Dahlonega coffee. It was really big on Pinterest during the pandemic and made a lot of this. It features some sugar, but cheat days. So check that out. That is all we have for you today. I will post when me and Derek Lytle's video about Gorge 100K goes up, but there were so many course records. I'm very tired and I fly home to my real home tomorrow. So with that, stay elite, my friends.